like there's no tomorrow.
Welcome to the BingKing podcast.
Okay, how's everyone doing? I have Marco here with me talking about urban bees. How are you today?
Ciao, Arthur. Thanks for having me here. I'm a bit tired. It was an important day today.
Oh yeah? What did you do today?
We started the day with having a very energetic group of Girl Scouts. Mm-hmm. There were not so many, but they were very energetic. And then I had to kind of close down for the winter one of our apiary site, one of the three we have, prepare the bees for winter. So just some maintenance to do. Uh-huh. And to be clear, after the podcast, then I go back home and then I start to work on what is my real job.
So it's a long day.
Yeah,
especially on a Friday too. It's tough.
Yeah, but Arthur, look outside. I mean, the window, the sun is amazing today.
It's
yeah.
beautiful today.
Perfect.
I know. So tell me how you got started with bees, and why you decided to do it in Shanghai.
Very nice questions. The first is a more traditional answer. So I was in Germany having fun with my vegetable garden. So I always, since I was a child, I'm Italian, but I was living in Germany at that time. And our orchard was not producing any fruit at all. So I asked the neighbors. And they said, yeah, of course. Have you seen any bee around? I said, no, actually, no. So, you know, Germany being Germany, you have to have a license for everything. So I took the license. I had 6 months of mentoring with a slightly racist, grumpy old beekeeper. He didn't want to be with me. I didn't want to be with him, clearly. But okay, after that, I took 2 beehives with me. And I was lucky because the colonies were very easy to maintain. So comes spring and summer, a lot of fruit on the trees and neighbors coming in, bringing me stuff because they said, we never seen so much production.
Yeah.
That's how I started around almost 20 years ago. Then I moved to Shanghai around 6 years ago. And of course, big interruption, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you move. I live in Junction Park, so not really the place for.
No.
But one evening I was bored. I was reading some research paper about the local Chinese bees. And at the bottom, there was the signature of 2 professors in Hangzhou, the university. I contacted them and I said, I would like to come back to beekeeping. Can you help me? So they introduced me to Syngenta company, which is the largest pesticide company in the world.
Oh, no.
So I think they were feeling guilty.
Uh-huh.
So they helped me to find a bee base,
Yeah.
an apiary, right? So I got in touch with this company. It's a legit vegetable farming company, but it is also working with China Space Agency.
Okay.
They asked me to do the pollination service for the plants of which the seeds were sent to space.
Okay.
Low orbit space.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, in fact, we are the only one in the world to have space honey, by the way.
Space honey.
Yeah. It's not what people can think about. It's not the space honey.
Yeah.
You know, because someone is asking. No, it's just the honey of those plants that were sent to space. So yeah, this is how I started here. But that was just for my personal hobby. That was 2023.
Okay.
Then I invited some friends of mine in my football team. They came with children, with their children. And the children, they were enjoying. They were talking at school. Then schools approached me. Mm-hmm. And then they said, can we bring the classes? Yeah, why not? So, and then it became like a more mainstream activity. So, for example, this year we had the chance to have over all the international schools, YCIS, CIS. Yeah. Actually, I would like to single out Una Minogue at YCIS because she was the pioneer of this. She was great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, because my objective, I say our because we are a group now.
Sure.
Is
how big is the group?
It goes that when we have guests coming to visit the bees at our open days, someone is asking me, I want to be a beekeeper, but I don't have a garden or a space. Yeah. So they join our volunteer group. Mm-hmm. And I basically train them on the job. I don't want to say train, actually. I share my experience.
Sure.
And we use some literature as a reference, but basically it's just training on the job.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing of beekeeping for me is that it's a lot of drama. And it means that, for example, in our beekeeper group, we exchange sort of a brief before the visit.
Okay.
But when you go there and you approach or you open the beehive, you never know what you can see inside. And sometimes can be amazing. Like, I don't know, a colony is growing healthy and you can find a lot of pollen out of season. But sometimes can be dramatic, like a colony can die and you do the beehive autopsy, which is sad.
Yeah.
Actually, we have done one 2 weeks ago with the beekeepers. And then you try to understand reasons. And the reasons can be anything, including beekeepers' mistakes. Yeah. But
I
it's
assume
full
that.
of drama.
Right. So why in Shanghai though? I feel like Shanghai is a very urban city. There's not a lot of there's like nature, but there's not a lot of nature. You know, like I grew up in New Jersey. I went to Central Park all the time. Central Park is very naturey. Shanghai doesn't have that much nature. Shanghai is very concrete. So to have bees in Shanghai, which I rarely see, is very shocking to me.
Okay. Let's talk about the micro part and the
Okay.
macro part.
Sure.
So the macro trend for bees is actually migrating to cities.
Okay.
The reasons are also linked to the main reasons why bees are disappearing all over the world. Now, forget about what they say, bees disappear, humanity will die. That's not true.
Okay.
It's true
Good to
that
know.
2/3 of what we eat in terms of fruit and vegetables depends on bees, on direct pollination. And honeybees are one of the most efficient one. But staple food, rice, wheat, corn, don't depend on bees. So, but okay, they're migrating because we do a lot of mass farming.
Yeah.
So it means that there is a lot of resources in very specific time of the year. If you look, a city, as a paradox, offers less resources but more continuous all over the year. And especially, now let's go about Shanghai. I want to say that Shanghai, yes, is a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
But if you look, the government take a lot of care on changing flowers very often.
Yes.
Now, we may discuss from these flowers they're coming from, and they are planted, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I can tell you they're all from greenhouse.
Yeah.
But it's good. So
Is it?
it is offering a very diverse and very continuous resource for the bees.
I see.
In fact, if you, and I'm sure after this podcast you will do, if you look around, you can see bees very often in Shanghai.
I find that very hard to believe because I'm outside a good amount and I don't see a lot of bees. I used to see more. I think I see less this year than maybe 10 years ago.
That Arthur, I cannot answer you because the trend all over the years, I can tell you, in the last 10 years, more than half of the colonies all over the world, they have been lost or disappeared. So bees are disappearing all over the world.
Okay, great.
And
because
I believe
I feel that as well. Like 10 years ago, you can see bees around the trees, you can see them around the streets. Recently, far less.
the last wild bee I saw was 3 weeks ago. I went to the hospital. I have to do a treatment, and I saw a struggling bees there. But what I do, and actually your podcast could help, I do what is called swarm rescue.
Okay.
So I want to clarify first what is it and then why.
Yeah.
Swarm rescue is exactly how it sounds. So sometimes you have wild swarm of bees, specifically during the late spring, because it's the way colonies reproduce. And at that time, they swarm. It means that the queen, the old queen, will take half of the bees from the original colony, will fly away to find a new house.
Why?
That's the way the overall bee population reproduce.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's we always have to think about honeybees as a superorganism, meaning on top of being a very complex society where the greater good is more important than the individual.
Yeah.
A lot to learn there. But we also have to understand that the bee has to be considered as the whole colony has to be considered as one animal, and this mechanism to swarm away, it's how the whole organism is reproducing.
Okay.
Aside from the single bee reproduction.
So let me understand. The queen takes half the colony away. What happens to the other half?
Very good question. So Installed queen inside the beehive will produce a pheromone from her jaw that is basically telling to the bees, I'm at home, everything is fine. The moment she flies away, she leaves, the bees will realize that. So they will do what nature programmed them to do, which is we will take around 4 to 5 very young eggs, less than 4 days, and kind of reprogram them to grow up as queen. Now, reprogram means that while a normal honeybee will hatch in 21 days, and after the 6th day, usually will move from a diet based on royal jelly, moving to a normal diet of honey and pollen.
Okay.
A queen is fed for all her larva cycles, which is 16 days, shorter than a normal honeybee.
On royal jelly.
On royal jelly.
Correct.
Now, royal jelly is coming directly from the bees, by the way.
Yeah.
From the head area of the bees, of some bees. Yeah, but so coming back, so they swarm. So what? It's their way to reproduce.
Okay.
So it happens to me this year. It happens 5 times. That people are calling me because now I'm starting to get popular in Shanghai as the bee guy.
Yeah.
So they call me and they say, "Oh, we have a swarm of bees, for example, in a school playground," which is not exactly what you want.
No.
Right? Because they left a wooden box there, so obviously,
Yeah.
perfect habitat.
Perfect. Right.
So I go there, and then I bring back to our apiary, because we during winter, the wild bees normally will survive only 47% of the case. On our apiary last year, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, congratulations to the beekeepers team. But the point is that we feed them during winter. We insulate the beehive. We take care, right? Now, the swarm relocation or swarm rescue is funny because there are 2 ways. One, when you don't have a huge colony and you're lucky, I go there. I spray them with a little bit water sugar, so they're very busy cleaning and licking themselves.
Sure.
And I look for the queen.
Yeah.
Gently, I take the queen and I put in the beehive box, and then all the other bees will
Just
follow.
go there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, for example, I had one swarm rescue early this year. I have a cool video about it, and it took me like 15 minutes.
Wow.
I just took the queen, I move it there. You have to imagine it's sunrise time, because you do this during when there is no light. Because when there is light, the bees are outside working. Yeah. So I just sat there and I looked the column going in. Then I also had the other way of the swarm rescue, where basically you have such a huge colony. So I rescue a colony in Jing'an, right in front of M50, on the 23rd floor. So I tried, it was a huge colony. I tried to find the queen. By the way, the owner, he said, if either you move the bees,
Or I kill them all.
or I call the firemen,
Yeah.
which they will hose down probably.
Yes.
So I tried, trust me, Arthur, I tried to find the queen.
Yeah.
After 20 minutes, half an hour, I gave up.
Yeah.
So I just basically scoop the bees inside the box, and I cut the frames. I cut the honeycomb, and I put back into the frame so that they kind of have, they will find the same structure back. Yeah. And then I still wait. Well, luckily the colony survived because it was a huge colony.
Yeah.
And once back in the apiary, a week later, I found also the queen. So
Great.
everything was good.
So how big is big? Like you say, it's a very big colony. I have, in terms of numbers, what does that look like?
Let's play a guessing game. What do you think? What do you think a fairly large colony in number of bees?
100.
100 bees?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be correct if I would ask you about bumblebee.
Oh, okay.
Probably even around 50. There are small colonies. No. So
For honeybees, they're much smaller.
correct.
Yeah.
And then it depends on the bees. For example, Chinese bees are 2/3 of the size of an Italian bee.
Okay.
But to answer your question, a good colony is 50,000 bees.
50,000.
Yep.
That's a ton. That's way more than I thought.
Yeah, 50,000. But beekeepers, they don't count the bees one by one.
Yeah, it's just an estimate.
They
Way
measure, they measure according, we use it as a unit frame. So inside a beehive,
Okay.
the commercial beehive, specifically we use the Langstroth beehive, which is the standard all over the world. Only in UK, of course, they use a different way. Of course.
Of course.
So I'm going very racist on this,
That's
on this
okay.
spot. First the comment about the German, now about UK, but it's jokes. So we use frames, and the frame is a wooden structure where we could eventually even provide them with some wax layer base to help them build the honeycomb.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just give empty frame. Now, why do we use frame? Because sometimes beekeepers need to do some manipulations. For example, is approaching winter, 2 weak colonies is better to merge to have one medium-sized colony that can overwinter, right? So having the bees on the frame and having
It's easy to move.
It's easy to move.
Yeah. You can merge colonies? Or do they fight? I feel like they would not. They don't necessarily have. They might not get along, I feel like.
Okay. You're right. Merging colony is a process that you cannot just scoop bees inside another beehive. Usually we call it, we use a technique using a newspaper. So we put in between the old colony and the new colony frames, we put a new paper sheet, which basically allows the bees to chew through and give them the time to get used about each other.
Okay.
It's even more fascinating when we do what is called requeening. So imagine this scenario.
That was my next question, was if there are 2 colonies, there are probably 2 queens, then they probably don't get along for sure. I know women.
Oh, now we are also great job, Art. So that's okay. Beekeeping is data-driven decision making.
Okay.
That's the way I define it. So you collect a lot of data and then you have to take informed decision. For example, winter is approaching, a small colony, decision is, this is the data, the decision is, okay, I'm gonna merge. As you rightly said, there are no 2 queens into a colony. Never.
Yeah.
Almost never. So if you would put them together, the queens will fight, which means, yes, one will survive, but she will also be damaged. You don't want. So this hard decision for a beekeeper. Some beekeepers will squeeze one queen and then do the merging. Some others will put the queen in a other small beehive and just feed her through winter, even though her, let's say, the chance of success of this process over winter is very low for a queen that is alone. So, but generally you have to take the decision and only one queen.
Yeah.
And of course, queens are different, colonies are different. And so you might have your favorite queen, like because maybe she's producing bees that are making more honey, or maybe their colony is more gentle, right? Or maybe the queen itself, herself, is more tidy the way she lays eggs. So it helps you with the manipulation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I see. That's really sad to hear that one of them has to go, you know?
Yeah, but let's talk about the dark side of the bees. That's interesting. They have a lot of dark sides.
Really? Because to me, honeybees always represented hard work, right? They're very straightforward and they work hard. That's what you're taught when you're a kid, right? Work like a honeybee, and you just, every day is just work. And you don't think they have a lot of personality. But as I talk to people who get to know bees, it turns out bees have a lot of personality. There's a lot of like, each colony has its own like feel to it, which is not what I expected. I kind of just expected they're a little bit more like robots and they just work.
There are many aspects, but the dark side is coming from the positive traits that you just described. So, I mean, bees have been here way more earlier than human.
Yes.
And even in the classic age, for example, the Romans, I'm from Rome, the Romans were always using the bees to represent, hardworking and loyalty. And another interesting aspect, for example, the Catholic or the Christian church is using beeswax in the church because the wax is produced only by virgin bees.
Okay.
And it represents the purity of the light.
Cool.
So it's true, they're hard workers, but they are ruthless. And that's what I love about them.
Okay.
So there are they're ruthless and they are obsessed with tightness and cleanliness. That's why I love them. But let's talk about the ruthless side. So, for example, the queen is not the ruler.
Okay.
The queen is a egg machine. So when the queen is starting to get old, she doesn't produce as much, or she's not tidy, or she doesn't produce at all. The colony will actually decide
New queen.
new queen.
Yeah.
And how they kill the queen?
I have no idea.
They do the queen bowl. So they wrap the queen in a bowl of bees. The bees will flap the wings and will basically suffocate and
no.
overheat the queen.
Oh,
I witnessed more than once and I left it go because this is nature, right?
yeah.
Let's talk about the queen. The queen herself is very ruthless. So remember you were asking me, what about new queens hatching out? So the queens, they make 4 to 5 queen cups. It's called like this, the cell for queens.
Okay.
And you have 2 cases. The first case is one queen emerges. And so the first job she will do, she goes around and kills all the other queen pupa.
Of course.
But then it's even worse when 2 queens emerges at the same time. The queens will fight. As a beekeeper, you don't want, because whatever queen will survive still is damaged.
Injured.
Yeah, is injured. But the colony will also take side.
Oh.
And at a certain point could even finish the fight. Yeah, so. And another thing very interesting. So, for example, okay, let's talk about the genders in the bees. You have male and female.
Mostly female.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, very good, Arthur. And if you are a beekeeper, you want your beehive mostly of worker female bees.
Right.
Why? Because the drones, so the boys, they don't work one day in their life.
They don't do anything, is what I understand.
Yes, that's correct. Look, imagine the life of the drone. I'm born, someone is feeding me, then when the time comes, I go out on date, and if I'm lucky,
I get to mate with the queen.
I get to meet with the queen.
Correct.
Then I die.
Yeah.
But
It's not a bad life.
it's not a bad life. You're dying doing what you like. But it also comes to the time that, for example, you have drones up in the beehive approaching winter. So a healthy population of drone is around 5-10%. So that's why correctly you said it's mainly worker bees. But when it comes winter, the worker bees, they know that they are basically adept on the colony balance, right? So they evict them.
Okay.
So as a beekeeper, for me, it's common to come when it's cold like now. You go and you see a lot of dead bees in front of the gate entrance. You don't get worried if you see that they're all males. That's normal.
Right. Ah, that's sad. But I mean, nature's very ruthless. To me, as humans, I think we kind of forget how ruthless nature is. I tell some of my friends that I want to go hunting next year. In New Jersey, hunting deer is very natural because your hunting license pays for the preservation of the deer. 2, deer are everywhere, and it's a huge problem, and it's attracting black bears, which then cause an even bigger problem. So to be able to kind of control the amount of deer in New Jersey, they give out up to 6 tags a year, and you're allowed to take 6 deer a year if you can. And a lot of people will say, wow, hunting's very mean, very ruthless. But would you prefer to have a deer get killed by a wolf who kind of keeps attacking this deer and she slowly dies, or maybe just an arrow, which will kill her in 30 seconds, right? I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten that nature is kind of mean, kind of ruthless. There's a lot of pain there that we have kind of like separated ourselves from, you know? When you actually interact with nature more and more, you find that, oh, actually, it's not as nice as, like, you know, most movies tend to make you believe.
Yeah, and nature is pragmatic.
Yeah.
So as bee, you know, so it's perfect example. I think that to extend what you are just saying, which, by the way, I totally agree with you. I'm a hunter myself. I am shocked when I have young students coming over at the apiary, how far and disconnected they are from nature first. So they really do not understand what you just said. And secondly, also how disconnected they are from food.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
right? They don't understand the effort behind the food, where the food is coming from. I mean, we are back to spaghetti are coming from the trees.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I was lucky to go to Inner Mongolia last year, and Inner Mongolia is a different part of the world. You know, we went into a couple of the camps, and you have these bottles of milk that you can kind of feed the goats. And as you're feeding the goats, they are telling you, oh, that one's going to be dinner tonight. And immediately, you know, at around 5 o'clock, they just string it up and cut it. And my friends were shocked, of course. They were like, oh my God, we were feeding that maybe half an hour ago, and now it's strung up by one leg. But again, we have forgotten where our meat comes from. We forget where a lot of our food comes from. A lot of our people only see steaks. They don't even see like the whole leg.
Yeah.
None of that. They just see a piece of meat in a piece of plastic. And that always shocks me. I'm like, do you understand that this piece of meat comes from an animal that's so much bigger than forgotten?
Yeah, but I mean, I have to be honest. I named my dog, but I never named my
bees.
Yeah, of course, because there are thousands and thousands. Yeah. But also, I never named the queen bees.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, for example, we have the adoption program, so organizations can adopt a beehive, right? And they often ask us to name the queen bee. I explain them what you just said, that you know the queen can die and so on, and just to let them understand that because naming a pet is a different step in my opinion, right? Yeah. So I guess the goat was not exactly. At least you were not calling by name, right? I hope so. Yeah. That's a little bit psychotic.
Yeah, because you form a connection with it all of a sudden, and then it's a different animal.
But that doesn't stop me to feel bad.
When the queen passes.
when I mess up,
yeah,
I have no problem to say that even this year, after this long time, even this year, I think that for one colony I made a mistake, which was basically I didn't double check they wouldn't block the entrance. Yeah, so luckily I realized, but after a few days, so a lot of bees died because of this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. It's human.
Yeah, but I also take care of a lot of the others. So
right.
It evens out.
So again, back to bees. I think the main, I guess, interaction that we have with bees is really honey. Humans, right? Yeah. Most of us have heard that honey is very good for you. Honey is, you know, a natural sweetener that has a lot of other benefits. I've heard a lot of myths about honey. Please let me know if they're true. My mother always tells me that you should eat local honey, that you should have honey. If you're in New Jersey, you should eat honey made in New Jersey because it helps against your allergies. Is that true?
Yes.
Really?
It's the same concept of the homeopathic medicine. So, Arthur, first let me give a disclaimer to the audience.
Okay.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher per se. And I'm not an entomologist. Okay. I'm just a passionate one. So please double check my information. Okay.
No problem.
But on this, I can tell you, it's the same concept. But it's a very important question because it allows us to talk about the good honey and the
bad honey.
Yeah, and the inferior quality honey. Okay. So let me explain you. The good thing in the honey, having said that, still the 100% composition of honey is unknown. We don't know exactly the 100%. But one part that gives the taste and gives a lot of benefit is also the pollen and all those small particles that are inside the honey.
Okay.
So, for example, a super crystal clear honey usually is not a good sign. Why? This is probably an industrial honey. Industrial honey means that there is no separation. I'm going to get a bit nerdy. There's no separation between the brood box, where you have eggs and larvae, and the resource box where you have honey and nectar and pollen.
Okay.
So it means that, and this is very much, I'm not judging, it's just the traditional Chinese beekeeping. They only have one box. So when it comes to the harvest season, they cut everything. They put in a big press machine. They're pressing eggs, larvae,
bees.
Also bees, some bees also. Yeah. And then they they have to filter 3, 4, 5 times through thinner meshes every time.
I see.
So it's ultra filter.
Yeah.
So it's taking out the pollen and it's taking out some good things that are inside. And back to your question, then you are just eating sucrose and fructose.
That's what I'm worried about.
What is honey?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is good, but it's sucrose and fructose without the good thing.
Yeah.
If you eat local, but local means 30 kilometers radius, there are some research. It's I would say that we can generally say that eating 30 kilometers local honey with micro dosage before the allergy season will help you having milder symptoms of your allergy.
Interesting.
And but you can also eat pollen itself.
Oh.
Yeah. Which
But then it depends on what you're allergic to, right?
Yes, but there is a different reaction from, for example, the pollen that you breathe in and the pollen that you eat. Again, if you're an allergic subject, don't eat pollen. Okay, don't try it.
Right.
But in terms of this idea of having a protocol, right, for the allergy, you can go straight to pollen. Or as we do, you have the spread of honey and you sprinkle some pollen on top.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's probably fine.
But coming back, also one thing. Our honey, for example, is what we call it unfiltered. So it means we filter only once just to take the wax out.
Yeah.
And because we take only from the resource
bin.
Yes. So from that part of the frame. So we don't need to. In fact, our honey is not crystal clear at all.
I saw it. It's got a little bit of cloud to it.
Exactly. But I think this is what it makes it tasty.
I mean, that's what I feel like about most of our foods. It's just, it's become so filtered. It's become so, quote, refined that you're kind of missing out on a lot of the benefits of actual food, right? Again, let's go back to meat. Like my friends that eat very like processed or very, just even cows from like very clean, let's say, atmosphere. I would rather have a wild animal. Like in almost any sense, I would like to have this animal eating what it wants to eat throughout its life and then have a more almost robust taste to the meat. Whereas and a cow that's just been eating corn all of its life, it's kind of almost one-dimensional to me, where I'm just like, oh, it tastes like this, it tastes good, but it's kind of no layers to it.
Yeah, but I want to also tell you, Arthur, that in my mission, honey is just a bait.
Okay, interesting.
What I mean here is that people contact me often to have local, organic, unfiltered raw honey. We call it raw honey, which is a very good idea. And that is the opportunity to invite them to our apiary, to have our tours and to understand better about the bees and then to become active, not only consumer, which already if you buy honey from your local beekeeper, that's the best thing you can do, right?
Okay.
But I invite you to visit your beekeeper, because then you can, as you were saying, find and create a connection and a link with your food, which especially when it comes to meat, we are completely losing.
Lost.
Right?
Yeah.
And not mentioning about the price. I really don't understand how a chicken breast, it costs 4 RMB. Half a kilo of honey costs 29 RMB.
Yeah.
By the way, very interesting. China, again, I'm not judging, I'm just telling the data. The legislation about honey is the following. It's a first level food production, which means that you don't need any special license to produce and sell.
Okay.
Because you just bottle. But that means that you can put the honey label even though it's not 100% honey. And I invite you to do one thing. You go to Family Mart or Lawson, you buy your yogurt, and you have your honey bag inside.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that honey. That's
Right?
not real honey. There's no way.
It doesn't crystallize in the fridge. How is that honey, right?
Yeah, it's
Cannot be.
impossible. Yeah.
But its label has honey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's different. In Europe and US, I mean, I come from Italy. We're strict about food, you can imagine.
Yeah.
And imagine that even if it's 99% honey, for example, we sell honey with nuts or honey with wax, actually, with a honeycomb.
Okay.
You cannot label honey. You have to find, like, for example, it's called miele honey in Italian. but that thing is called melito. So it sounds like, but it's not. Yeah.
I see.
So there is-
Interesting.
yeah.
I mean, I would rather have that. I would just rather have a honey where you know it's 100%. Or it's not filtered, it's not gone through a lot of processing. Which is why your, I guess, Urban Bees is so interesting to me. Because you're really going from a very raw source, as opposed to who knows what have been added to, I guess, what we are eating. I work in a food company, and a lot of even coffee is not just coffee anymore. It's coffee plus natural flavoring.
Oh, like the vanilla, coconut.
No,
not even.
but they label it as coffee.
Yeah.
But they'll throw in a little bit of extra flavoring just so it tastes better.
to give it a kick.
Yeah, and not labeled on there. You have no idea. But that's what's going on right now because there's such a high demand for good coffee, and most people can't tell good coffee, but they want to really have like a pronounced, let's say, grapefruit flavor. Well, then I'll put a little bit of like flavoring into it, and it tastes a lot like grapefruit. Where's that from? It's just artificial flavoring, but there's so little of it that they don't have to label it.
Right.
And that bothers me.
Like legally don't have.
Legally,
right?
you
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
to label it.
But I don't know what you think, Arthur, but I think that slowly consumers here in China are going in the same direction and maybe
I mean, they have to.
yeah, I'm happy about it. They pay attention. To be honest, okay, our main objective is not selling honey. Our main objective, by the way, we're a volunteer group, so selling honey is just the mean to support our operations.
Yeah.
And is really not our job. But I have a lot of local Shanghainese customers. They always contact me first for, do you have local raw honey? That's the reason. And I want to tell you a very interesting case. I want to name and single out an organization.
Okay.
I'm very grateful to. Is the Ritz-Carlton in Lujiazui.
Okay.
Here.
It's right by you.
Yeah, it's right here. By the way, great site for the podcast. Specifically Dale, the GM, and Annie McGee, the head chef, because in just 4 weeks, they contact me. We met. I told them our story and our mission that is about honeybee education. They came over to the apiary with the chef team, so 3 chefs, the marketing team,
I love it.
HR, everyone was there. We had a tour. They took videos, pictures, and 2 weeks after, we started the afternoon tea with our honey products, and also a bit uncommon products like pollen or the mead, right? And of course, this gives us the visibility that we need, and people will understand that this honey is just few kilometers from where you're eating it. You know, that I think it was important for me to mention them. Sorry.
No, they're incredible. We had a restaurant a long time ago when I first came to Shanghai. Also, it was on the Bund, and we did as much local sourcing as possible. We also did bees. We did bee larvae, unfortunately.
Oh, I know.
We did bee larvae, and then we would have them, I guess, toasted.
Yeah.
And then they would be in one of our dishes, which is fantastic.
Oh, I'm fully in favor of insect eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
was delicious. A lot of people were kind of freaked out a little bit because some of the larvae would have like a wing stick out. But that's just...
I would be curious about your provider, but that's a different story.
But it was delicious. And I do think that a lot of restaurants are also moving in that direction.
Yes. Yeah, Alt's Diner is another...
Yeah, they're great.
They're great. If you go there, they have the sundae that is called Urban Bees. The sundae Urban Bees.
Really?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
With our pollen and honey. I mean, Grace has been great in that sense.
Yeah.
But, I want to ask you one question.
Go for it.
What is your personal relationship with honeybees? Like, have you ever been... Never around the honeybees?
Never.
Why?
When I was a kid, we used to have a lot of bees.
Okay.
My grandmother's house had this huge flowering tree, and every spring there would be a ton of bees around it, and we were terrified of the bees because we were kids. We would assume that we would get stung.
Okay.
But then slowly we learned that we could catch them in our hands and be okay.
Yeah.
And eventually we weren't scared of them anymore. But at the time there was this huge tree, and we were terrified of the bees in the spring. And then eventually you realize that they won't sting you, they're not going to bite you, no big deal, and we got used to it. But I also kind of moved to cities where there were not that many bees.
Less and less.
So I just never got a really intimate, I guess, interaction with bees. Like they were not really, I guess a thing for me.
We have a lot of guests that basically they have a similar story, right?
Yeah.
And they come to our apiary sort of going out of their comfort zone, right? So I always,
because they're scared, right?
Yeah, because they are scared. But I appreciate people that are going out of their comfort zone. I mean, some people will do with like jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right? For example. But but those guests is very interesting to observe, because at the beginning when we approach the bee area, they rightly stay maybe 10 feet away, right? And then slowly when they see that our bees are actually very gentle,
Yeah.
and at the end they finish the tour taking a picture with the holding a frame of bees with like maybe 10,000 bees on it.
Yeah.
So that's
awesome.
when I know that they changed their mindset.
Yeah. That's incredible. And it's good to see that people are, I guess, just taking that extra step.
Yes.
Because I also have friends that would probably go and they would not go anywhere near it. Like they would look at it behind
fine.
glass. That's as far as I'm going.
But you can still make the difference. You buy the local honey, again, not necessarily from us, but just local honey, because it's also helping beekeepers. Average age of beekeepers is getting like incredibly, I think in the US is 63 years old.
Oh, geez.
Something like that. There is also a slang called beekeeper's age, which means you are 40 to 50 good looking men. So that's the reason why I started beekeeping. So now everyone can call me that. No, but jokes aside, you help the beekeepers, and the beekeepers are helping the environment. We are the invisible contributors to our ecosystem. Like the job we do, no one noticed that, but everyone will benefit of it.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I said before, I work at a food company, and one of our projects is monk fruit. I don't know if you know monk fruit.
Yeah.
And so monk fruit is notoriously difficult to pollinate. It is right now actually in China mostly done manually.
Yeah.
And I've asked about this. I was like, how do we make more monk fruit or make them, I guess, faster? And it's very difficult because the scientists have told me the insects that used to pollinate monk fruit, we don't know where they are, but they're gone.
Oh.
And so this is all done manually now. And it is a very difficult time of the year to be doing it manually because it's usually in July or June.
Very hot.
So super hot out, all done manually, and not a lot of people are willing to do it. So monk fruit is very, I guess, low yield because it's just very slow. And it's only done once a year.
It's becoming expensive. But, I don't know the specific situation of the monk fruit, but now the beekeeping services, so the pollination service is actually the main revenue source for a commercial beekeeper.
That's what
it's
I
not
want
the
to know.
honey,
Yeah.
right? It's not for us. We don't do pollination service. We don't do the nomadic beekeeping. So our bees are always in our base. But it's very common to see that now this job is done by underpaid, undereducated workers all over the country. Why? Because it's easier to tell people to do that rather than learning beekeeping, because there is a big difference between beekeeping and behaving.
Okay.
Because, bees are wild animals.
Of course.
And our main job is actually to keep them there. I'm joking about it, but it's true. Like a lot of industrial beekeepers, they don't care about the winter. When it comes to maybe October, they harvest the honey, they destroy the colony, and then in March, they will buy new queens and start from scratch. They don't care about the time, the money to feed them during winter, which instead we do. Yeah.
So tell me more about, I guess, what we were talking about earlier, because you had mentioned that there's ethical beekeeping and non-ethical beekeeping. And industrial, I understand, is slightly less ethical. It's kind of what you were saying before. So what are the differences? Is there actually a difference in the product, in the honey?
So let's start with the data. I don't know exactly how much, but the honey that is available on the market, it's like 5 to 7 times the honey that is officially produced.
Okay.
So that's already is telling us something. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking generally in the world.
I understand.
So there is demand for the product, and there are two ways to increase the production. One is to do the non-so-natural beekeeping. For example, you can feed your bees with sugar solution. White granulated sugar is cheaper than honey,
100%.
right? So you feed them and you have processed sugar. You yield a lot. You can do the non-ethical, what we said earlier. So you just at the end of the season cut all the frames, and that's the harvest is like 10 times more of what we do. That's why our honey is actually expensive. You know, this is one way. The other way is you cut your product with other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more common.
But ethical beekeeping, what we do, which is a part of the natural beekeeping. So natural beekeeping is a beekeeping technique that doesn't force too much the manipulation on the bees. So for example, clear example, we don't clip the wings of our queen bee. So when it comes April, we only rely on our technique to keep the bee there, to keep the queen there. And if she does want to swarm away with half of the bees,
She's going to do it.
just gonna do.
Yeah.
Right? But if you clip her wings, she will not swarm.
She can't.
Yeah, she can't. So, you know, probably that's what a lot of industrial beekeepers they do.
I see.
But this is a minor impact because clip wings queen bee is not a huge thing in my opinion.
Okay.
But there are more controversial practices that will increase the production or will trick the bees. Yeah. On the other side, as a beekeeper, you also have some responsibilities. For example, why do we harvest pollen? Pollen is the trigger for the queen bee to decide on the population volume. More pollen, more eggs.
Okay.
Since we live in areas with monoculture, if you go around Shanghai when it comes March, it's plenty of rapeseed plants.
Okay.
Yeah. So the bees, they think, oh God, I'm in paradise.
Yeah.
So the queen sees all this pollen coming in and she makes a lot of eggs. 3-4 weeks after we harvest, everything is gone. And you have too many bees for the resources.
I see.
So we collect pollen, not only because we like it, but also because it manages the population. Yeah. So this for me still is within the natural beekeeping.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I did not know that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about this because, again, I feel like we don't know enough about what naturally bees do. All we know is they get honey, or they get pollen, they make honey. That's the extent of most people's understanding of bees. We don't understand, how they're creating more bees, what's going on. We know nothing about like how the queen kind of reacts to her, I don't know, her hive or whatever.
Or environment.
Yeah. So we're very disconnected. And you suggest that we should go to you guys, take a tour, kind of get a little bit more understanding.
Yes. So Arthur, I would like to tell you what is our mission, okay?
Sure.
So I have a clear vision. Everyone has the mint or basil plant on the terrace. I truly believe everyone can have a beehive on the terrace.
Oh, no. I don't think so.
I'm designing a beehive with a chimney entrance,
Okay.
which will allow the bees to fly away from us. And basically, there is no contact. And also the manipulation that you have on the bees, like, for example, extracting honey, is done using some one-way entrances that you can switch on and off.
Interesting.
So you literally don't touch the bees. And if you want to see the bees, you just take the wood panel out and you can see through the glass. Okay? So I'm not saying everyone has to do it, and
Right.
I'm being provocative about
I
it.
understand.
But I want to say that beekeeping is easier than we thought at the beginning. And once you start, you realize it's a complex art. But at the beginning, it's very easy. Yeah. So our mission is really to educate and increase the awareness about the importance of honeybees.
Yeah.
So I feel bad when kids see bees and they say, when they are disgusted.
Yeah.
It's
I see that too.
yeah.
It's more fear, but then some of them are kind of grossed out by insects.
I mean, you have your preferences. I don't discuss, but generally, you first should understand. And now the problem is that it is coming from the parents.
Yeah.
They don't have understanding.
No.
So, Yes, I thank you for the invitation. Yeah, people should come to visit our apiary or
Yeah.
any apiary. I have a recommendation. Go to visit an apiary where the tour is at least 1.5, 2 hours.
Okay.
Because I've seen other apiary tours I've been where it's just 15 minutes. Just open beehive, look, take a picture, bye-bye, buy the honey.
Oh.
Now, our guests, they get a good 30 minutes funny bees information. We go through the farm and they ask millions of questions. They wear the gear. I explain why they wear and how they wear. And we approach the bees, and then they have honey tasting. So it's a very complete tour, which I think helps the emerging of awareness consumers.
Yeah.
That's the
I think
point.
so too.
Yeah. And then we do another thing. I personally do direct educational activities. So last summer I published a book.
Congratulations.
This one I don't know. The congratulations might be too much. It's a coloring book.
Okay.
for children.
Okay.
But it's English Chinese and it has more than 30 didactical units, so people can learn. Right.
Yeah.
But now I'm also preparing a book. Maybe the congratulations there will be nice, about biomimicry. So it's the idea of which are the lessons that we can observe from beehive or from beekeeping activities that can be applied to organizational behavior. So management, business, and leadership.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. And I also want to say that there are a couple of organizations that are really far-sighted. For example, New York University in Shanghai. They invited me for some guest lectures, and we are discussing eventually a course potentially there. So
Nice.
this will be very interesting for the education. But in my opinion, I have a roadmap. This year, the roadmap was telling us we bring the people to the bees, so they come to see the apiary.
Right.
Next year, I want to bring bees to the people.
Right.
So I would like to have school adopting. And I can tell you that there is already in Shanghai, the Shanghai American School.
SAS.
And actually,
Nice.
I want to say thank to Milan, Ellen, and Naomi. We started this project together. And I would like to reach companies. They have these huge campuses and factories. This is perfect for the bees.
It's not. I will tell you right now that our factory is in Zhangzhou.
Okay, I don't
It is near Ningbo.
know.
No, that's not true. It's near Xiamen.
Xiamen.
Okay. And the reason that the factory is so clean, and it is very clean.
Oh,
It's clean because there's no grass. There's no insects. There are no rats. It is spotless. In fact, there is a small thing of grass. Everything else is stone and concrete. It creates food, but animals have to travel across piping hot concrete in order to get into even to get in, They try very hard to keep it as sanitary as possible. And I understand why they do it. I think in some ways it makes the consumer feel more comfortable. Because the consumer is like, they're going above and beyond what is necessary to create my food. Well, then it must be very clean. It must be very safe. I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it.
You're talking about usage also of chemical products, I believe, right?
Some of them will have chemical products, but we just make coffee and tea. Like, there's not a lot of
But still,
chemicals. There's a couple, right? I think we dry freeze some things. There are some chemical processes, but overall it's coffee and tea. There's only so much that you can do with it.
I don't want to convince you too much, but I want to make one point.
Go for it.
Shanghai is a vertical city.
Yes.
Apparently, Shanghainese, they don't enjoy too much the terraces. Terraces are the perfect habitat for bees.
Why?
They offer a vantage point over resources. A bee will forage in a radius of 3 to 5 kilometers.
Okay.
So they don't really care what is on the balcony. They offer they all have corners which are sheltered from the sun and from the wind. They have no foot traffic or low foot traffic. And still, we can have our unsung heroes on the terrace working for us. And also, there will be a very minimal interaction with the people because they will just fly. So I have a couple of companies that, in fact, are discussing the idea of installing the beehive on the terraces.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think this is the way to go. Let's say. Then, of course, I understand that we're coming to situation where, for example, you have a lot of children. Yeah, so I wouldn't advise a kindergarten to have a beehive because children are curious, right? But if we look at Europe, Jardin de Luxembourg in Paris, you have public beehives right in the public garden.
That's great.
And that's what I think in Junction Park we should do, you know?
Yes.
A little fence area so curious people will not touch the bees. Because bees are
They're still
vegetarians, herbivores.
Right.
They will never ever attack you unless you go there and kick the beehive. There's no point for them to.
But you
stay.
don't know with little kids, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why the fence.
Yeah, the fence should be there.
And also, I want to tell you one thing. Earlier, you were talking about your memories, childhood memories. We have to be careful because around bees, there are always wasps and yellow jackets because they predate on them.
Okay.
So sometimes we might get stung by a yellow jacket or a
I
wasp.
think it's a bee.
Exactly.
I
You know?
see.
Yeah. And you don't want to be stung by them.
No.
It's not pleasant.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you, I know that a lot of people know about honey. I've recently bought a lot of honey from my vendor in Yunnan, but they also asked me about if I was willing to buy royal jelly. And royal jelly I'd never tried before. I bought my first jar very recently. They told me to freeze it, to keep it in the freezer. I don't know if that's preferable, but I've been eating it just like a tiny spoonful every day. And they say there are a bunch of benefits from it. Is that true? What's going on with the royal jelly stuff?
My mom was giving me royal jelly at the tip of the spoon when I was a child.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a good or bad example. It is proven that has benefits.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I am not in a position to quantify the benefits. I can talk more about, for example, the melittin, that is the venom inside the bees, that is research that is offering anti-inflammatory properties and potentially anti-cancer properties. But coming back to royal jelly, so surely is not harmful.
Okay.
I would not keep in the freezer at all. I would
Oh,
because it's as a living organism. I would keep it in the fridge.
Okay.
By the way, don't keep the honey in the fridge. Just the royal jelly.
Okay.
But I would not use royal jelly too much because the way it is produced, it is forcing. It's kind of bees mass farming.
Okay.
So the royal jelly is what they feed the larva.
queen.
And the queen, yeah, and any larva. So the point is that there is kind of a forced production of larva,
I see.
and there is the extraction of the royal jelly.
Okay.
Okay. So, but
It's unlikely to be very ethically farmed then.
correct. But I think it's still we can use in moderate quantities. Yeah. I think we do. Working with some local chefs, we do some food research, and I think that aside from royal jelly, have you ever heard about bee bread?
No.
Which is misleading as a name, but that's the English name. So during wintertime, the bees, they mix together honey, pollen,
Okay.
because that's what they eat. Pollen is protein and honey is carbs.
Yeah.
And then they put their enzymes to ferment these. So
Oh,
the
interesting.
bee bread is like kimchi, kefir, yogurt, like
Right.
this fermented food. So more bioavailable and helping the gut flora and blah, blah, blah. So, of course, by the way, this is just 10 years old research. Huh? And so I wanted to do that. But of course, I'm not going to squeeze my bees out to have the enzymes, right?
No.
So I read some research and we try to replicate this with the lactobacillus, the one used for yogurt.
Yeah.
And so we have what is called bee bread. It's a fermented honey pollen solution. It tastes, it's very interesting because at the beginning it's sweet as honey and pollen. And then the aftertaste is like
A little bit sour.
Sour, exactly. Sour as the yogurt, right? So it's very interesting. It was in the Ritz-Carlton afternoon tea
Interesting.
menu, by the way. Yeah.
And it's generally beneficial for the body.
Yes, because it's more bioavailable.
I see.
Right.
Because of the fermentation.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And this is like a new thing, or have people been eating this forever and we just don't know about it?
I would say that as a mass consumption and also reaching the F&B industry is a relatively 10 years old
Okay.
discovery. Right?
Interesting.
I mean, if you want to look on Amazon, they're selling for crazy price.
Really?
Yeah,
I
very
can
crazy
imagine.
price. We also have it because I do for myself because I like it, and I
Yeah.
do for some chefs that they like it as well.
Right. I mean, royal jelly's not cheap either, right?
No,
like that
correct.
stuff is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Like a small jar of that, I could buy 3, 4, 5 jars of regular honey. you know?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of manual labor. You literally have to go and take out the larva, which is, by the way, also how do you reproduce the queens. You take out egg by egg. It's called grafting. That's very intense a manual job.
Man, you probably have great eyes. Like
Oh, you need to.
yeah.
Oh, I'm past that part. Arthur.
Okay.
Can't do-
I can't imagine because I look in there and I understand that spotting a queen, it's slightly bigger, it's a little bit easier, but like tiny little that's impossible for me. I'm too old for that.
Sometimes we do trick for our guests. So for example, we mark the queen,
Okay.
so it's easier for the guest to spot.
Oh, okay.
You know, and it's interesting. I mean, it's not only for the guest. There is a reason why. The reason is that queens, they live 3 to 5 years, on the contrary of bees that usually are between 6 and 8 weeks.
Okay.
So very different lifespan. But we mark the queen, and each year has a specific color. Yeah. So last year, for example, was the red. So last year we have all the red queen. So we can identify how old the queen is.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. And do you find that affects how the bees see the queen or no?
No, the first 5 seconds they are so cute because the attendant, which are kind of the bees that are all around the queen all the time to feed and clean her,
Yeah.
because the queen bee doesn't do that by herself. It's a queen.
Yeah.
They're so cute because they try to kind of scratch it out.
Yeah.
But by the way, it's a water-based marker, so
Yeah.
and it stays. But just I realized just today I was closing one of our apiary for winter. I think one of our queen she was able to scratch out the marker because
Nice.
I found her, but
Yeah.
and it's the same because I recognized the color. But she didn't have the marker anymore. It's okay.
No, that's interesting. So you guys, I mean, it's nice to see that you have a real interaction with all of the bees and you can kind of recognize them. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's rare. You know, I think a lot of city people now have this idea of moving away from the city, having their own farm, having maybe their own bees, having their own garden. Like I talk to a lot of my friends that are just sick of city life and they're trying to slowly move away, grow their own food, be slightly more self-sufficient. I think that's why all of the videos on YouTube are so successful,
Yes.
right? Whether it's homesteading and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's becoming a wish that a lot more people are having. And I think bees are a huge part of it.
Look, Arthur, I want to invite everyone like you or your guest or your audience that has this wish to don't wait. So, for example, I've been living in Shanghai since 6 years now. Only last year, I started my rooftop vegetable garden. And last year I said, why did I wait so long?
Yeah.
So the same, if you have the rooftop or if you have the chance to live in a garden, I have 3 or 4 persons that adopted beehives in Shanghai, and I kind of mentor them. I give them support and assistance when they need. So when winter is coming, for example, I go there and I help them preparing the bees. So if you if you read any of the books about homesteading and so on, for example, I'm a huge fan of the Chicken Backyard Bible.
Okay.
Okay, because I'm exactly relating to what you just said. Okay,
Right.
So I'm reading this book, and I always looking for the chart of what is the easiest animal to start with.
Right.
Because
Is it the chicken?
It's the bees.
Is it? Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
The bees is really the first animal you should start. Beekeeping is slow and fast at the same time. It's slow because it's seasonal. So you follow the season. And so what you learn in March, April, you have to wait 1 year then to
do it again.
apply, right? But it's fast because whatever you do, the technique you apply, I would say no more than a week you see the result. So the learning is fast, right? It's very interesting. While with other animals that live longer, you would need more time to learn, right? I'm a huge fan of goats.
It's funny you say that.
Why?
I said I had a huge thing on goats too.
Come on, Arthur, they are
They're
so
incredible.
nice.
Yeah, they're incredible. I was actually just talking to my friends about goats because they are supposedly the ideal pack animal for when you go hunting.
Right.
And if you get a deer, it's 100 pounds of meat that you have to pack out. That's the most difficult part of hunting, believe it or not. It's just getting the meat out.
Right.
So goats, they say, are better than horses because goats will keep and stay around you. You are the alpha of the goats. Whereas a horse, if it gets spooked, it goes home. It just bolts and goes home. It doesn't come to you. It just goes straight home. And then you have to pack all of that meat out as opposed to the horse. Whereas goats will come and surround you and try to, create like a safe zone.
Right.
It's much better.
Yeah. I'm very attached to goats. By the way, I know we want to talk about this, but you know that in Shanghai you have a lot of this kind of mini farming open
I've
for
heard,
visits,
yes.
right? Yeah, and you might have seen that a lot of them, they have sheep and chicken and goats and geese. So I have a friend that a person I know happened to have this one, farm like this.
Where?
In Minhang.
Okay.
Not far from our apiary site. So I went there and it was summer and I saw these sheep and goats with a huge bale of wool. And I asked, so it's time to shear them, right? Oh, we don't know how.
Oh.
So around August, I was teaching a few Shanghainese shepherds to shear their own goats and sheep. It was a little bit surreal situation that a foreigner in Shanghai was teaching them how to shear
goats.
their own goats.
Yeah.
But the animals were suffering with such much wool. Yeah.
But it's good that they got to learn, right? I mean,
Yes.
once they learn it, then they'll teach whoever else is going to come next. The ability to get that information out to them will help whoever takes that job next.
It's funny you say that, Arthur, because that's exactly what I want to do with the Urban Bees Shanghai.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I'm going to be in Shanghai. And I would like to I want to foster a community of beekeepers that can take over and then can, disseminate colonies, take care of them. So if after this podcast, some more person can contact me, that would be amazing, right?
That's
because
the
that's
best,
the
right?
objective. Yeah.
That is, once you leave, you hope that information gets continuously used and transferred and improved upon, right? As the next person that takes over and keeps going. Ideally, I don't know if you want to keep it a volunteer community or eventually become an actual job, right?
Arthur, thanks. I would love this. I will. You know what? So I'm coming from the AI world, so we use it a business model which is called as SaaS, so software as a service, right? So I invented this formula, and I'm proposing now to some companies that is the BaaS.
Okay.
Beekeeping as a service.
Okay.
So you just pay a fee. You have tiers. Okay, you have 3 tiers, and according what you're paying, we provide you the beehive. We take care of them. We give you the honey when it's available. And if you want, we can train your people to do the same. And once in a while, you can do tasting event rather than beekeeping visit event.
Right.
All at your site. That's what really the vision. And if you have
That's not a bad idea.
10, 15, 20 sites in Shanghai, I leave my AI job.
Yeah. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that's very doable.
Yeah, but I still need to find the one company to start.
Yeah.
Because I was invited by the Rotary Club. By the way, thanks Tiziana. I had the chance to speak with few companies. A couple of them, they really tried that.
Yeah.
But then they started to ask the permission of their compound or their building, which of course...
It seems unlikely. Yeah.
No one will take this risk, even though it's legal. I want to clarify this thing. Under 10 colonies in Shanghai, in China, it is considered hobby. So the only obligation you have is don't bother anybody.
Right.
which of course we
kinda
know,
hard.
right? Everybody can complain. But if you have your own garden, if you have your own roof, no one can complain.
Right. But I mean, people even complain about small dogs these days.
Yes,
Right.
Arthur, you're correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in a very sensitive society, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It would be much better if this was fewer people and a little bit more open land. I think it would be
Oh, yeah.
much
Yeah.
better. Right.
On the other side, if you put a beehive on your terrace, unless someone is going there, no one will really realize because
Yeah.
you're not impacting. I mean, a small dog is more visible.
Yeah. Correct.
That.
All right. I mean, I learned a lot today. That was
Thanks.
very incredible.
By the way, you are a great host because it was really like a super normal flow of conversation, Arthur. Good job.
Thank you very much. I've been doing this a while.
I see that.
Again, how do they find you guys? Urban Bees. What kind of social media do you guys have?
We have WeChat official account.
Okay.
You can just type Urban Bees Shanghai. We also have a Wadian mini shop, Urban Bees Shanghai.
Okay. What do you guys sell in there?
We sell the honey and we sell some merch.
Nice. Oh, I'm gonna go
support.
get some merch. That's
Yeah,
cool.
and we have this. And now it's Christmas. We on request we are gonna make 2 different Christmas gift box. Yeah, also to allow people to taste different kind of honeys, because we have different kind of bees, different kind of honey.
Yeah.
So Urban Bees Shanghai on WeChat official account, Wadian shop. And otherwise, my name is Marco Sentinelli. You can find me right like this on WeChat. Especially if you see a swarm of bee, call me, please.
Awesome. I will put all of that in the description, and I hope you guys go call Marco. I'm gonna go come check out the
Yes,
the
please.
bees. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was great.
Do 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 do.